The story of Robert Fitzgerald, Civil War veteran and teacher, is told here through his diary and the words of his granddaughter, Polly Murray.
In case I should be shot, please send this diary to my home. Robert Fitzgerald, Elkview, Pennsylvania.
If Grandfather had not volunteered for the Union in 1863 and come south 3 years later as a missionary among the Negro freedmen, our family might not have walked in such proud shoes and felt so assured of its place in history.
June 15th. Engage the foe with infantry and artillery. Grape shot, canister, and shell whizzing in every direction. Emerged from the woods in the face of a terrific fire and in front of the rebel breastwork. A falter, our noble colonel wounded, but mounts his horse in a charge upon the fort. It is ours.
Following the war, Grandfather attended Lincoln University. It was there that he heard General O.O. Howard, chief of the newly created Freedmen's Bureau, speak with deep emotion, urging the young men of Lincoln onward in the advancement of their race. At 25, Robert Fitzgerald answered that call and set out to join the Yankee schoolmarms in the South. As he explained it to his parents, he was a soldier in a second war, this time against ignorance.
On June the 25th, arrived at Amelia Courthouse, Virginia, one of the most dreary-looking places you ever saw, and on stepping off the cars, I conceded I saw some of the very faces I had met in the Battle of Petersburg. I went to a building which the colored people had commenced for a church and was discouraged to find it without roof, door, or windows.
Whatever else the freedmen lacked, there was in them a fierce hunger for knowledge. Before freedom, stealing learning was a crime for which they could be whipped. Now it held the magic of the rainbow after a violent storm.
August 28th. These people learn more rapidly than those at any school I ever taught. I think by November, we could have them reading, writing, and ciphering for enough to keep their accounts.
He taught school 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. Twice a week, he held night school for 2 hours for those who worked all day. His enrollment increased from 8 to 160 scholars.
June 29th. Sent in my report to the Bureau, accompanied with compositions from about 12 of my advanced writers, instructed from the alphabet up to their condition. July 25th. Received 5 eggs from P. Hughes for book. For tuition, McGee paid in chickens 50 cents. Had an introduction to July 29th. Went to see one of my little sick scholars, who is an orphan and is afflicted with fever and chills, though only 11 years old. Poor little fellow was very glad to see me.
When Grandfather walked along the roads, the freedmen left their work in the fields to run down and beg him for books. They wept tears of joy when they could recite the alphabet or read a line from the Bible or write their names.
June 29th, 1867. The students' progress has been surprisingly rapid. I must here express the gratitude I feel to the Divine Being for sparing my life yet another year and placing me in a position to benefit my fellow man.
Grandfather's next teaching assignment took him to North Carolina. He was so impressed with the quiet historic town of Hillsborough, he encouraged his parents and siblings to join him, and before long they did. Soon after, Grandfather married a fine-looking woman from Chapel Hill, a former slave, Cornelia Smith, my grandmother.
April 21st, 1868. I let the Republicans have the schoolroom for speaking and in which to form their line of voters.
North Carolina was seeking to rejoin the Union, and the political campaign to adopt the new Constitution was underway. Being a teacher and natural leader among the freedmen, Grandfather was intensely interested in the outcome of the vote.
While I stood at the polls, the vote averaged 5 colored Republican votes to 1 white conservative. I heard a white man say, "Today is the black man's day. Tomorrow will be the white man's." I thought, poor man. Those days of distinction between colors is about over in this now free country.
What Grandfather did not fully realize then was that only the guns were silenced at Appomattox. Reprisals came swiftly.
April 29th. An old man stayed at the mission house last night who had been driven away by his conservative employer and his dogs because he voted for the new Constitution. He came in, very worn and weary, and left this morning. He has a family to get away.
Two powerful beliefs battled on. One was the belief in the equality of man. The other, that a black man had no rights which a white man was bound to respect.
September 1st, 1869. Weather's dry and hot. The infamous Ku Klux Klan has visited our post town, Hillsborough, and killed a black man who was supposed to have burned a barn. September 28th. Stayed up at Father's last night to avoid the Ku Klux, who are said to have an ill feeling toward me because of my political opinion.
Whether it was prayer or whether it was the rumor that the Fitzgeralds were good shots, nobody knows. But after a while, the Klan left them alone.
November 30th. I am going to make my school free of tuition, and it begins tomorrow. A free school for rich and poor, black and white, high and low, supported principally by myself, the rental being paid by the Freedmen's Bureau.
Unfortunately, 1869 marked the end of the Freedmen's Bureau work and the gradual decline of philanthropic support of schools among the freedmen. Grandfather soon found out that you simply couldn't run a school and support a family on $10 a month. So he appealed to the local school committee for help.
January 25th, 1870. I rode up to Samuel Hughes, the examiner of teachers for this county. He said the fund had been squandered and was of the opinion that colored children would have to be taught on Sundays. It is my opinion that Mr. H. is somewhat biased by prejudice and will not put himself to any inconvenience to further the cause of education among the colored people. February 23rd. Snowing all day, and not one scholar came to school. I cut wood and hauled today. March 20th. Clear and warm, about 75 in attendance. The scholars are improving both in appearance and in their interest. One boy recited the whole of the 5th chapter of Matthew.
Grandfather faced many hardships, among them deteriorating eyesight, a lifelong problem that had been made worse by a sniper's bullet in the war.
April 2nd. I am toiling on under a burden almost intolerable. My funds are low and the prospect discouraging.
By the time he was 40, Grandfather had become so blind he could no longer see the print on a page and had to give up teaching. I could not fully grasp the significance of Grandfather's work until I shook the hand of this man in 1954. More than 100 years old, white-haired, strong of voice and clear of memory, he was the last survivor of Grandfather's pupils in 1867. He said that what he had learned so many, many years ago in the Freedmen's School had helped him do business on his own account because he could read and write and figure. Standing before this venerable man, I felt awe.
Who without experience in the matter can imagine the anxiety and care of a teacher for those consigned to his care and training? I can say, thus far I have sown in tears, may I reap in joy.
What he attempted, far more than what he finally achieved, made him our colossus and beacon light. Because of him, we felt that we had a stake in our country's future, that we could stand very tall and in proud shoes.
Robert Fitzgerald died in 1919 at the age of 78. 3 of his 6 children became lifelong teachers. His granddaughter, Polly Murray, became a well-known lawyer, activist, teacher, and writer, and later in life, the first African American woman to be ordained as an Episcopalian priest.